Hello, fellow Fumblers, and welcome to another episode of the Film Fumblers podcast, the show where four friends fumble through your favorite films. Today, we are reviewing Get Out, a movie released in 2017 and directed by Jordan Peele. Without further ado, my name is Adrian.
Hey, I'm James, and today we are joined by two guests. Alonzo here. I'm like, let me see if I'm doing that right. And
what up?
Matt here. So we're very happy that you guys could join us on this one to kind of round off our Black History Month with a pretty popular film.
I was so excited. I was like, we have to do a Jordan Peele, like Get Out or Us. And Matt actually was just like, Get Out. Like we asked him on the show, he was like, Get Out. And I think
that's a good choice. I think that's a good choice.
Honestly. And it's perfect timing because the movie came out 4 years ago, like Monday. So this is the 4th anniversary of the movie. Does it hold up? Is it still great? I don't know.
Stick around.
I don't know.
Let's whoever's shooting, customary, if you want to,
Don't make fun of me. This is all I had left in the bottle.
Oh my god.
Oh wow.
So,
we're not gonna bust you, man. Don't worry.
Ooh, boy.
I've been sitting on that tequila that I got on the.
Oh, for Secret Santa?
For Christmas.
I did. Yeah, it's been good, man.
Nice, good.
Nice, very enjoyable.
Good. All right, Get Out, 2017, Jordan Peele's first movie, a horror movie of all things. Everyone kind of just knew him for comedy, and then he throws a horror into it. I don't know. Interesting. I didn't know he went there.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a surprise. It was super well received, or at least it made its mark, I mean, for a first film of somebody who does comedy, it was very highly successful, which is really cool,
What were you guys, did you guys watch Key and Peele, I assume, everyone?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Key and Peele?
Yeah.
What were some of your favorite Key and Peele? I was trying to think of some of the ones that had stuck in my mind. The one I'm thinking of, like kind of off the top, is the college basketball kind of recruiting video where it's like the names get increasingly like more and more like ridiculous.
Contavious.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just like that one sticks out. Then there's another one where it's like Key and Peele and they're kind of talking behind their girlfriend's back.
Yeah. I said bitch.
I said
yeah.
That one stuck with me. I mean, it's a very fun show.
The substitute teacher,
classic
Jacqueline, Jaqueline.
Aaron. Yeah.
I think my favorite, the one that sticks out to me so much, is when they're having, it's all of those like gang members, like the criminals, and they're having like a board meeting, and they're just like, all right, so we need to like sell more drugs and like do more crimes, and and Jordan Peele's not sitting down, and he's just like, why don't you sit down? They go through that whole thing. I never sat on no chairs. Like, so good.
Yeah. I think it's funny. I'm totally pulling this out of my ass, but I think the first time I ever saw them was there's a video for Weird Al's song called "White and Nerdy." Do you guys remember that at all? Is making fun of Chamillionaire riding dirty, and they play the two dudes like driving the lowrider at the beginning of the video. And the only reason I know that is because my kids like Weird Al, and we were watching a bunch of Weird Al videos, and that came up.
Yeah, so I mean, all of that is why it's such a shocker that he was just like came out straight away with the horror movie, and then back to back another horror movie. So he has these. I wonder. I don't know. Is he working on anything else? I actually don't know. But
the Lovecraft Country County.
Right.
It's like a TV show.
He produced that.
Oh, okay. Did he not write
he's
it?
A producer. I think he's a producer, but. Go check that out. It's worth checking out. I watched the first couple episodes. I got to watch some more, but I enjoyed it. I like Lovecraft though. Like, it's a really cool, interesting take.
But going back to like his comedy, you definitely get a little sprinkling of that in this movie, I think.
James, I was just about to say, I think so. Watching it recently again, it's like it was a lot funnier than I remember it being.
Yeah.
The shit made me crack up, especially, and I know it's, it's a horror movie, but there are just these painful scenes when, they're at his girlfriend's, house visiting and just at this party, and just these painful scenes, and like a lot of those lines were, I mean, they're like cringe, but I love the cringe humor. That's like always been my thing. Like I love like the Curb Your Enthusiasm and whatever. And like I know it's supposed to be a horror movie, but a lot of those scenes felt like a little Curb Your Enthusiasm type of deal. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Just how cringe it was.
I can understand that, but it's definitely like being like mixed. Like it was very relatable. It's like you've heard all those things. You've seen all those things. So it was pretty interesting. Like for me, watching Get Out, I was thinking about it. It's the first horror movie that is from the Black perspective, because there's not a lot of horror movies. All right. For the first point, like Black people aren't going to go into the woods into a haunted house.
Right.
They're not going to open up a Ouija board, right? That's kind of like a cultural thing. Like they're not going to do that, And so are there any really horror films that feature that perspective, I can't really think of any. So it was the first one. And I think about it how it's kind of like Godzilla or like Cloverfield, right? Godzilla was a reaction to to the bombings in Hiroshima, and then Cloverfield, that was definitely a reaction to 9/11, right?
Right.
So
yeah.
Watching this movie felt like, as I was watching it, like the first time in theaters, it was that kind of feeling, like that perspective of the like the Black experience of the fear of white people, which was really like there were times where I was shaking during it and I didn't know why. Yeah, and like it took a couple of like days afterwards to like process, oh, why was I shaking during that,
I one of my notes is literally I see white people, right? Like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, I think that's to me that's like that's one of the innovative things of this movie, right? It's and I'm not gonna ultimately I'm not gonna compare my experience with his experience, main character's experience, right? But I'm an immigrant, I'm Peruvian, and when I was a little kid, all of a sudden you get put in these social situations with people that are not really part of your culture. You know what I'm saying? And so the things you do or the things they do, like there's just like this level of disconnect and discomfort. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I mean, at least for me, I immediately empathized, right? Like I immediately grabbed onto that and what he was feeling in that situation.
Yeah.
And like even like with my wife, like when I first met her family, obviously her family's not like that, but
they try to sell
shout out to Katie. But just it's just they're like from the Midwest, like a little more conservative, a little more reserved, and like I'm not that guy,
Yeah.
So just I could immediately grab onto that like feeling of discomfort, right?
Yeah.
That was another thing, I think, to Matt's point, how you were saying like no one's just going to run into the forest, and that's just something that is kind of always a little bit unbelievable in horror movies. Is like
it's the Black trope, like the Black guy always dies first, kind of thing.
Right.
This was the first time you see. Well, I don't know if it's the first time you see, but the Black guy comes out.
Yeah,
the victim.
And I think in Daniel Kaluuya's character, he acts very rationally throughout the entire film. I feel like things that are happening, you see him kind of be like, this is really weird, and like it feels like authentic. Like in a lot of horror movies, you're like, no one behaves that way, but when you're watching Chris, you're just like, yeah, this is how you would behave. Like this family's kind of weird, and he's just I think it's written well, it's believable.
Right.
Yeah. And I think what you're talking about, his reactions, like the whole time he's very aware of what could possibly happen, or in his mind, or if he oversteps his boundaries. So one of the characters says something off-putting or strange, and as the audience we experience that as like, oh, this is so weird, but Daniel Kaluuya's character is like, yeah, this is okay. We're going through this, like, yeah.
Yeah.
So it reminds me of that scene, the scene towards the beginning of the movie, which I think is genius, right? Which is when they hit the deer, right? They're driving, they hit the deer, she calls the cops come, right? And cops are talking to her, and then one of the cops asks for his ID, right? Even though he didn't drive, right? And like, she's like, why are you asking for his ID, right?
Yeah.
And it's interesting because like she can kind of afford to resist, right?
Yeah.
He's just, it's like, man, I've been through this a million fucking times. Like, just here's my license. He's just like trying to like minimize, right?
Yeah.
Like pacify the situation as much as possible just to get the fuck out, right?
Which was a very similar kind of scene interaction in our last review, Queen and Slim, just or 2 reviews ago. But Queen and Slim, there was that same pulled over, just trying to like, obey the law sort of.
Right.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, I just like, to me that right, that like dynamic where it's just like he's just trying to get by. He's just trying to get through and trying to shake things off, and he's just like used to like this sort of level of interference in his life, right? It's just like,
There's another really interesting thing to note about that scene is we talked about how we're going through the film from Chris's perspective, and so from Chris's perspective at this time, that's his girlfriend, and his girlfriend is standing up for him.
Yeah.
But at the end of the film, we find out his girlfriend's a complete fucking whack job, and she wasn't defending him so much as she was trying to kind of stop that paper trail from a police officer running his ID and her ID simultaneously, so they wouldn't.
That makes sense.
It's a great,
kind of really interesting. Like, if you haven't seen this twice, which I think all of us have now, it's really good. You pick up on a lot.
Yeah, there's a lot of little, and I think another thing that impressed me about this movie is just how every frame, every scene, it gives you something. It gives you something, either advances the story or adds a little bit of color, or something in the background is kind of giving you a sort of, subliminal something. And there just aren't wasted frames, there aren't wasted shots in the movie.
Yeah, like we've been talking about how this is through the black lens, and he's literally a photographer. It's literally through his lens, which is like, it's very what's the word? It's just apparent. It's just, they're not trying to hide that this is his viewpoint of the situation.
And apparently that's like that's a tactic that filmmakers do when they're trying to make the character be relatable to the audience, that you want to view it from their side. They make them a camera person. So this movie is kind of based off of like Stepford Wives.
And what is it? Rosemary's
Baby.
Yeah.
So
which are women's perspectives, right? Like, it's like the first time that you're seeing through the lens of a woman. Yeah.
So that's one of the notes I took with Stepford Wives. Have you guys seen? So there's 2 Stepford Wives movies. There's one from the 70s. There's one from, I think, the 2000s or maybe the 90s. I can't remember. The one to watch, if you're going to watch it, is the one from the 70s. But basically, the whole thing about the Stepford Wives is, right, it's like husband and wife move out to the suburbs to like sort of start a family, right? And then like the woman, she starts going to the grocery store and starts realizing that all the women act in this really weird way.
Oh, they're all robotic, right?
And then, spoiler alert, the women are being replaced by these like kind of 50s traditional gender role domestic style robots. Okay. and then so yeah, totally. I mean, that to me is like a direct call to like Steppenwolf for sure.
Which is interesting for this movie because when I went into this movie, I was expecting some paranormal shit, and then when it turned sci-fi, like I don't, like I don't know, is that considered
psychological?
But like when they took the brain out and that's how they figured it out, I felt like that was really sci-fi. Like I was like, whoa, what the fuck? Like kind of was weird for me. It didn't land for me the first time. Really honestly, it really didn't. I was like, this is kind of dumb. But watching it again, I was like, okay. Well, I've never seen those two movies, so I was like, okay, it's fresh. It's something that I've never really seen before, and it definitely, because like I don't know, I can't really say that this is a horror film. Like it felt more like sci-fi terror, like sci-fi. I don't know. It was weird. It was weird for me.
It was definitely It was definitely a weird, unique flick. I always felt like it was a horror though, and they used some comedy just to kind of balance out the tensions and stuff. But,
I mean,
yeah.
Go ahead, man.
For me, like that, like switch where you realize what's really going on, right? So, like for most of the movie, you're like, okay, what are these wasps gonna do? Like, are they kidnapping black people to make them slaves? Why are they hypnotizing them? You just think, and then when you that like flip, when you realize, oh no, it's not necessarily racism in the sense that we are going to. I mean, it is, but
it's not that they're gonna hurt. They're not seeking to hurt them. They just value their like sort of their bodies.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
They value their bodies and they're gonna use them, right? And like I think there's that monologue with the guy that's getting that basically gonna be put in the Daniel Kaluuya character's body, and he's basically like, I don't care if black, white, it doesn't matter, right?
A little thing is that I believe you have my stapler.
Yeah.
Yes.
It is from Office Space.
Stephen Root, who's like such an underrated character actor, big time. Like he's in fucking Idiocracy. He plays the judge in Idiocracy. Anyway, but
he voices Bill on King of the Hill.
That's right. Yeah.
Really?
No, he's a super underrated character actor. But yeah. So okay, for me, what I noticed was this is something I was going to talk about a little bit later, but I actually think that beginning scene with Lakeith Stanfield, I think that was a mistake because for me, I watched that scene, right? And then as soon as you see him again at the party, you kind of know what the fuck's going on. And then when you see the auction, you really know completely, what's going on. Like you basically know.
I felt like that first scene was definitely, it was an homage to Halloween, right? Like 100%.
Yeah, it was on that street.
The creepy car coming up, and then you getting kidnapped. Like, I just feel like that was like Jordan Peele's way of saying, "Hey, I like horror films too. I wanna show you guys."
It looked like exactly like the street in Halloween. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the problem I have with the scene is, like, if you take away that scene, and then to me, there's so much more tension because you don't really know what's going on, right? Like, you don't really know and you don't.
But then how do you drive it back? I mean, I guess eventually they're like, hey, I know that guy. Yeah, I guess they could have took it out, and it would have maybe been a little more impactful when he goes and talks, when Daniel Kaluuya's character talks to his friend.
I feel like there was an opportunity to build a lot more what the fuck is going on tension, right? And maybe that scene at the beginning is more for the audience, like so that they're not completely shocked. Right. I don't know. It's
like when I first saw that first opening scene, it was in a sense cathartic, or not cathartic, but so. The words he says is as he's walking down the street and he's on the phone, he's talking to somebody and he's like, man, I'm creeped out by this suburban neighborhood.
White people neighborhood.
Like, it's like creepy. And so I think that's the point of the film, is to show, it's like a foreshadowing of the point of the film. It's to show people how really black people are freaked out by what could happen with white people. This, that's the point of the film. And that is a shocker because the perspective that we have in most things is that somebody's walking down the ghetto or some sketch neighborhood and they're kind of like
or someplace on the other side of the track.
Right? But it's the other side.
Yeah, and it flipped it. And when I first saw that, I knew exactly, and I was like, "This is cool." Like it was cathartic in a way.
Yeah,
like
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
And going back to your like where you were saying Godzilla was like a direct relation to this, do you feel like this movie is because of like BLM and stuff like that?
Yeah,
for
definitely.
sure, 100%, yeah.
100%.
Well, I just think, I mean, it's just that to me that's like, yeah, it's unlike any other horror movie I've seen, from the standpoint of, it just it brings it tells that story in a way. First off, Jordan Peele's done his homework. I watched a lot of horror movies. Okay, I'm a big horror head, and it's not some schlocky, dumb, whatever. Like this shit is like clever, and every scene matters, every frame matters, and also it manages to be funny, which goddamn, like that's hard to do. Like this is some heavy shit, like you're talking about.
Hard to do, but I think like so important in any movie. Like one of my grading factors is like, was it funny? Even if it's a very serious film, like it still needs to have that comedic relief, I think, always. Like even in horror, maybe especially in horror. Like to give you that break.
With horror, what's really cool about horror movies, right, is they can subvert the audience. So what they can do is they can make you laugh at the most horrific shit, right? It's just like really a trick, like how the fuck does that happen?
But okay, so I although I did enjoy the humor of it, sometimes it sort of retracted from the seriousness of the situation. I couldn't fucking stop laughing at the maid when she's staring. So like he's I don't know if he's taking a picture or he's like kind of spying on her a little bit, and she's like staring at her reflection. And her eyes are all cross-eyed. They're all like jacked up, and I was just like laughing at that. I was like, "Oh my god, it's so weird."
I didn't get that. I was so creeped out by her character.
But I love movies that can mix that and like pull it off. You know what I mean? Like I love there's no reason why. Like okay, like we were talking. I think we've talked in the past about Inception, right? Like I'm apparently such a hater on this movie, but like the Nolan movies generally, like they generally don't have like an ounce of like humor. Like I mean, they don't. The tone is like completely consistently serious. Like cue that Inception foghorn sound. Right, exactly, right. And so like to me, like okay, it's cool to have a tone that stays consistent, and that's fine, but like it's kind of like what I like so much about that movie Dead Alive that I made you guys watch and you all hated. Is like I just love that movie. Like I love how it just can go from like romance to comedy to fucking like the most fucked up horror movie you've ever seen, gory ass shit. Like just right back and forth with like this like facility. You know how hard that shit is? Like that is hard to pull off.
I feel like, it can be hard to pull off, but also people use that nowadays for easy entertainment, Like, for example, like a lot of the Marvel movies had, or even what the new Star Wars movies tried to do was to to keep your attention by throwing in that bathos, And I think that can detract sometimes.
The sacred texts.
If it's not like like done in a right balance, it really detracts, or it just seems like I don't know, like especially in like some of like the Marvel movies, it's like okay, here's just a quick joke,
I hear what you're saying, and I think you're right about the balance. It has to be the right balance, because like this movie wasn't like just it wasn't a comedy, right? It wasn't just like jokes and laughs and like Key and Peele, right? Like it wasn't just like that. And like I feel like I feel like did you guys see the last Indiana Jones movie? The Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
It's so horrible. Like it's
Yeah.
so bad. And like part of the problem for me was like the first three Indiana Jones movies, they had funny moments. You know, like there are funny moments. Like in Temple of Doom, he's they're going through the bugs and like, okay, there are funny, lighthearted moments, but like, Indiana Jones is people are trying to kill that dude every 5 seconds. And in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, like it was too like childlike. Everything was like kind of a laugh. There were no
Blame
real stakes.
Disney.
You never
that
feel
it?
like he was gonna
Yeah.
die, or he never feel like he was in any kind of real danger. And that movie's so crap. But like, I didn't feel that way at all about this movie. Like,
No,
I felt like right when you could use it, and right when like, right when you could use it. I mean, the character, his friend, like the TSA guy.
Oh yeah, hilarious.
Like, I mean, people say comedic relief, but
Yeah.
he has an important role.
Yeah.
Like, if he doesn't do what he does,
he's the only person that
Chris-
shares the same perspective as him, the only person that believes in him.
Chris does not survive the movie if he doesn't do what he does, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, tone wise, I think I have no problem whatsoever.
I don't know. Maybe I just I don't know. It took me out a little bit sometimes, where I was like, okay, now I gotta get serious again and like take this seriously. I don't know.
No, fair enough.
I could see it, but I think it was good because, like you were saying, he's the only perspective that's from the same perspective as Chris, and so as like a viewer, it makes it not here's a black guy with around like white people, but it's like, okay, here are these people, like
you're not alone.
Yeah.
Shout out to Lakeith Stanfield. I think he did a phenomenal performance, and not easy. That scene, to me, I think one of the creepiest scenes in the movie is the scene where he gets the nosebleed and like breaks through for like a few seconds.
Yeah.
That is crazy. And then, like it's so intense and you're just like, okay. Okay, this is something else. Like, I think that's one of those movies, one of those scenes where the tone shifts in like a way that needs to happen.
Yeah.
But I think there was still enough mystery at that point. Like we talked about how the first scene maybe gave the audience a little bit too much, but I think we were still asking questions like, okay, so he's hypnotized, right? And we're like, he's just in some trance. But we find out it's something way darker, way deeper than that. What do they call it?
The sunken place.
Rugula, or like the word for the ritual or whatever, or for like the actual operation. It's something very, very deep, like deep and dark. And yeah, to touch on what James was saying is like that sort of sci-fi element. I don't know. I think watching it a couple times over, like I get it and I like it, but it felt like it did steer a little bit more away from horror in, I don't know, maybe in like the traditional 2020s, 2010s.
I don't know. I was expecting I don't know what I was expecting.
Like brutality?
I don't know. I don't know if I was expecting like some KKK fucking lynchings or something that would have been like horrific or something like that. But like it was just so sci-fi.
Before I forget, there's a movie. If you want that, if that's what you want,
no, I really don't. I really don't want that.
I do have a recommendation.
I'd rather not know it.
the French movie called Frontiers. So you can go check that out. But like, go ahead.
Like James, like to what you're speaking, like I think I went into it thinking, oh, it's going to be some sort of like KKK type of movie, and I like the fact that it turned out to not be that, because it spoke to something deeper than that, right? It spoke to the fact that's like it's like the ultimate mandingo, right? It's like the fetishization of black people, right?
Like, black bodies, right?
Black bodies, right?
So many times, right? So many times they talk about that, right? In that video, your physical gifts and our determination, right? Talking like grabbing his arm and like all that stuff. No, I think that's 100% right.
The creepy son. What was up with his accent? He was like somebody was like from
Boston or something.
he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like
yeah.
he had like such a left field accent. I was like, did this guy like not
th-
get raised around these people or what? Anyways,
I thought the exact same thing. Yeah.
but
Well,
he has that same sentiments where he's like, man, if you could really train, you would be a fucking beast. Like he's so creepy and weird.
Yeah.
He was. I feel like he was the creepiest to me. Like I was like, this guy's
Yeah,
weird.
but you know, they're like, but this like I've been told that, you know, and I'm only half black, you know, like people have told me that.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, it's so weird.
Dude was swinging around the lacrosse stick too. That was a nice little touch. Like for me, like
yeah.
because you know, to me, like lacrosse might be the most ultimate like white privileged, like college boy, white privileged sport, like of all time. You know,
I didn't catch that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think to me, you know, I think you hit on this exactly right. The trick that this movie plays on you is it like gives you like, oh, is it the Klan? Is it the Nazis or whatever?
Yeah.
No, it's the white moderate. It's the white liberal, right? Like it's the, you know, and that to me, like, is like, that to me, I feel that 100%, you know, and like, because like, you know, when I lived out east, I was around people like that all the time. You know, and like you know, those people like they speak in like a coded language, right? Like, oh, do you live in that neighborhood's not very nice. This neighborhood's nice. You know, they speak in that kind of language. And for a lot of people, it's really kind of hard to see through that or see that, right? And so maybe this movie kind of put that shit a little bit on blast in a way that is positive, which is cool, you know?
Yeah. Okay.
How many movies is that are these these kind of people the villains, right?
Yeah.
People who are thinking they're doing no harm, right? You know, I would have voted for Obama a third term if I could. You know,
I feel like we got that a little bit with Do the Right Thing last week. I mean, you have these white people who are
Larry Bird.
You know, that kind of
you
stuff.
got Larry Bird.
Yeah.
No, I mean, back to that, you know, like, I mean, you know, for me, like, as I've kind of grown, you know, like politically, like to me that's something that's a little bit easier sometimes to see through. And like that line about like the Obama for a third time stuff, right?
Yeah.
It is like, you know, not to get, I guess, too political, but like what, you know, meaningfully, like, you know, what has like a candidate like Obama done, you know, for black folk in this country, right? And like when you say stuff like that, it's almost like you're like saying like, well, here's my token of support, but like have things meaningfully changed, right? Like, you know, like have things meaningfully changed? Would things meaningfully change with a third, like, you know, a third Obama presidency or whatever, right?
Yeah. And
like, or like, there's another one where they say, "Oh, Gordon loves Tiger Woods," or loves Tiger Woods, right?
Oh man.
So, or you know, or black is in fashion. That was another thing someone said, right?
Yeah.
I think to me, like, it's good for people to like, you know, for white people, basically non-black people, to think about those things, you know, reset their, you know, frame of thought.
Yeah.
You know, because again, it's easy to make the Klan the villain. It's easy to make the redneck the villain.
Yeah, it was the right choice. It was the right choice because this movie, just like Do the Right Thing, makes you think about maybe some hidden prejudices that you hold in yourself, like that you don't really realize that are detrimental to, you know. And that's what's interesting about both these movies is like it makes you think, man, do I do these things too? Am I cringy trying to be an ally to black people and this kind of stuff? It's like makes you really kind of
another note I took was like the code switching that the dad does and the little brother does, right? Like, so in other words, like the dad, you know, in the company of a black person starts like speaking,
"What's up, my brother?"
Yeah, exactly. And like, you know, I mean,
"What's up,
I guess,
brother?"
you know, it's like I don't know, I feel like kind of crazy a lot of different ways about that, because for me personally, as an immigrant, right, coming to the States, and living in different parts of the country, you have to do that to some extent to survive. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so like I lived in New York, and that's where I learned to speak English, right? Then I lived in Miami with like 5 million Cubans, and I had to like sort of learn to make friends and be in that world. Then I lived in West Virginia, and had to figure out a way to like live in that world too, right? And so, but like I think the thing to me is that, like I just feel like I'm not putting on a show for anyone. This is just who I like. This is who I am. It's like I'm a product of like the different places I've been, the different people I've talked to, and stuff like that. But obviously, this is a person that doesn't meaningfully interact with Black people unless they're servants, right?
Yeah.
Or through the popular culture, and then feels like that's going to get him like a little bit farther along with someone else, like speaking in that way, right?
Yeah, and I think everybody code switches. I mean, I do it. Like you find yourself in positions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At work.
Okay, so
sometimes.
who here watches Big Mouth? Do you guys watch that
Yeah,
show?
I've seen it. Yeah, I've seen it for sure.
And so there's that episode where there's this little girl. She's like a mixed girl, and then she has a Black friend, and then they go to the city, and she's with her cousins, and then he starts to like code switch, and it's just like everybody code switches. Like, I don't know, it's so weird when you realize how ingrained it is in you. Like for me, when I like realized, oh wow, like I almost every interaction I have with like older white people, there's that in my mind. Make sure you sound like the way that they want you to sound, like how my whole personality was built around that,
Right.
It's pretty crazy. But so I mean, I guess I don't find it as a fault from the, because I think everybody does it, right?
Yeah.
My dad does it, like
customer service voice we all have.
Yeah. Oh my God, when I heard Jay's customer service voice for the first time, my mind was blown. I was like,
what was the context of that?
I was at Staples, and he was working Geek Squad or whatever, and I heard his customer service voice.
Doing a intro voice, right? It's
well, like so when I speak in Portuguese, I I kind of put on a voice, if that makes any sense. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, because the people I learned it from, I try to sound like them. Mostly just because I feel like it makes it sound more like accurate, you know? Like, you know what I'm saying? Is that exactly code switching? I'm not really even sure what the fuck that is exactly. I'm just trying to sound a little bit more intelligible to them. You know what I'm saying?
I worked with this guy who he spoke 7 languages. He spoke English, Spanish, French, Farsi, Arabic. Like he spoke so many different fucking languages, and I was just like, how the hell do you do that? How do you do? And he was like, it's almost like I have a split personality where each language has their own personality because I have to get into the character of that culture.
Yes, it is. Yeah, it's true. Very true. I feel like that. I speak 3 languages. I feel like that a lot, right? Like, and even in Spanish, there's a way to speak in a Peruvian Spanish. There's a way to speak in a Puerto Rican Spanish. There's a way to speak in a Mexican Spanish, And if I'm talking to someone from Mexico, I'll catch myself like modulating a little bit. And like, I wonder if I sound like a fucking fool.
My aunts say that my dad speaks like a Mexican because he's Puerto Rican. And they're like, oh yeah, I hang out with all the Mexicans down in New Mexico. And it's like, yeah, I mean, that's primarily who we work with, but it's interesting.
Yeah, no doubt.
We kind of went off the wayward here. But
back to the movie.
I want to take it back to Get Out, and I want to give paid props to Allison Williams, the actress who played Rose. She did such a good. I feel like she was so believable, like in the beginning, like how everything is just happening around Chris, and like she just reacts so authentically, and like she's like, God, I can't believe my fucking brother, like, oh, like how he was saying all these things, and my dad, I've never heard him talk like that. Like, I was fucking fooled, like almost up couldn't find the keys. Like it was that far that I was like,
yeah. Same here.
Yeah.
I thought at that moment that she had been hypnotized to not know where the keys were. You know, like that's how good it was. Yeah.
I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think of what I thought when I first watched the movie. Well, first off, first off, she's super fine, and
super fine.
yeah, no, she is. I mean, just she's in that show Girls I watched, and I think she's a good actress. Like I was reading that, some of this is like, like at least some of the concept is a little like autobiographical from the standpoint of like Jordan Peele has a white girlfriend. I don't know if they're married now, but like, and that he, had to do the thing of, being a being a black man and going to this, going to their house, the parents' house, right?
Mm-hmm.
And again, not trying to, respectfully, fine. Not trying to, compare again, but like, I'm married to a gringa from Indiana, and I've had to go to the parents' house for the weekend and stuff like that. And it sort of taps into a little bit the kind of paranoia of like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, there's like a new relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how the fuck are the parents going to be? What is she really like? Like put under the pressure. So like, to me, it just, all that felt so real. Like, it felt so real. I don't know. That was my experience.
And that definitely is it just speaks to the acting, I think, in the entire film. Like, this is the first thing I've ever seen Daniel Kaluuya in, and amazing. Like I read this thing that he got the part because he did fucking phenomenal in the what's it called, the tryout thing, what do they call them, the
audition?
Yeah, in the audition. He had to say this one scene. He did 5 takes of this one scene where the character's crying, and he cried at the same exact moment each time. Like a tear fell down each fucking scene. Wow. It's just like, damn. Like that's fucking
yeah.
I haven't seen him in much else. Just in Queen and Slim. Have you guys seen what is it?
He's in Black Panther.
Yeah.
He's in Judas and the Black Messiah. Yeah, both him and Lakeith Stanfield, they're both phenomenal. Both like fantastic in the movie. Like their performances are like, they basically drive the whole movie. Oh,
I haven't seen that yet.
Someone in the chat, Taryn's mentioning, I love that the Fruit Loops separated from milk wasn't as thought out as everyone thought it was. Oh, yeah. That was a nice little touch. That scene at the end where she's in pure white, drinking the milk, and then what was the song she was listening to? Just some cheesy 80s. Yeah, Time After Time. Is it Time After Time? I can't remember what it was.
It's something very cheesy.
Something cheesy 80s, like,
Yeah, she has Fruit Loops in a bowl and then a glass of milk, and she's just eating them separately. And everyone's like, oh, it's this whole thing where white and colors can't mix. And
no, it's good. It's money.
I didn't take it like that at all. I just took it as like a fucking psychopath is gonna eat their cereal. Like that's how I took it.
Well, is that what Taryn was mentioning? That even Jordan Peele wasn't even thinking of that?
Yeah.
Here's the thing.
Go ahead.
The genius of the movie. This is it right here, right? Is that frame. Like, there's so many layers of meaning. Do you know how hard that is? And it's funny, like sometimes you luck into something, right? But how much you want to bet though? Honestly, how much you want to bet that wasn't? A lot of times these directors, they like play around and they pretend like some of these things aren't as intentional as they are. You're right.
Yeah, you're right.
Hitchcock did, it was like he would, in interviews, he would always like deny, like, no, whatever, you're full of shit, when obviously there are obvious things there in the frame that were obviously meant to like,
there's another interesting little bit about that I think Jordan Peele kind of denies, similar to that, where the dad is giving Chris a tour of the house and he's like, oh, we have the basement locked up, there's some black mold down there. And so like everyone's like, oh, black mold, like a black person being a mold for like this vessel that they were gonna. And
I know.
And Peele was like, oh yeah, that's what I meant. but it's like maybe.
No, you don't just
Yeah.
write.
That's on the
Think about it.
nose. That's on the nose
He
there.
wrote that's a screenplay. He wrote the
Yeah.
screenplay.
Yeah.
You're just gonna write some random shit about what's in the basement? No, you're gonna pour over every single word. You know?
My personal favorite on the nose thing was the thing that saved him was picking cotton. It was the only time that a black guy got saved from picking cotton out of the seat, yeah, which I thought was very on the nose, yeah.
Well, I was talking about like this, it makes you laugh, right? A great horror movie will make you laugh at fucked up shit, right?
Yeah.
And that's like a perfect example, right? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, of course. You know, he kills the father with the buckhorns.
Yeah.
You know, they hit the deer at the beginning, right? Like, you know,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff, you know, just there's
really
a lot of stuff like that.
That was really big because it related back to his mother, how his mother died. His mother
Exactly.
run.
Oh, yeah.
And the deer didn't die instantly, and neither did his mother.
Right, that's right.
He was just sitting watching TV. He couldn't do anything, and
Mm.
he kind of got justice to, like, I don't know, maybe not justice, but like he kind of, you know, some.
Yeah,
But-
it's good character progression where he finally decides that he's not gonna
sit there and watch TV because he was in front of a TV just watching.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
finally act.
The way
And
the
then
Go ahead.
there's that buck there that's like a trophy, right? It's a trophy kill, and he's about to beat this trophy kill. But
yeah.
he uses it to kill, you know. So yeah.
See, there's like a lot of fucking really cool layers in that.
at the party, everyone dressed in red, white, or black, right? You know, or a combination of red, white, and black, right? You know, it's like obviously the colors of a certain flag, right? And you know, there's a lot of other things, right, like that where
everyone who attends the party shows up in a black car. All of them are black people.
So okay, here's something I couldn't figure out. I wrote this down, but I just couldn't figure out, like, what is the meaning of the cigarettes, right? The cigarettes and the fact that he smokes a cigarette.
Because he doesn't want to hurt the
he doesn't want to hurt the body.
Yeah.
They don't want him to hurt the body, right? But like, I feel like every time he goes to smoke a cigarette, it's like he learns a little bit more of the truth, right? Like, he sneaks out to get a cigarette, and then he sees, like, you know, exactly that dude.
So weird.
That dude running straight at him, right? Like, I feel like that. You know, I was trying to kind of like think about like what that, you know, and then the fact that he has no family, right? And like kind of a perfect victim, right? Like potentially, right? And you know, like you know, it's like they thought, you know how like these movies will ask you to suspend disbelief, right? And like for me, like the only thing, I mean, there's a couple things that you have to suspend disbelief. The brain surgery stuff, and I would even say the hypnosis stuff, right? But like everything else, like everything else, they did a really good job of buttoning all that shit up, you know? Having a reasonable explanation.
It was totally relatable from so many points, you know, and I think he did a great job. And let me see, well, James is kind of away, but I think the cherry on top of the film for me, right? The cherry on top is it's the scene that's kind of like the Darth Vader scene in like Rogue One, right? That's like the cherry on top is at the end, right? When you think, you know, like he's killing her and then he stops and then you're like, how's he going to get away? Okay, he showed her mercy. Don't do it, man. Just fucking kill her. Just do it. And then and then the cop car, here he comes.
Nice.
And then the cop car comes and like the whole crowd, right? Like that's like the genius of that. The whole audience, you know, you get that sinking feeling of like,
shit.
Oh no.
Oh no, right? And then he subverts it. But that's the genius part of the whole movie is that everybody in the audience at that moment like has the same feeling, and it's like the cherry on top, you know.
So did you guys mention that was going to be the alternate ending? Sorry.
No. Yeah.
So Jordan Peele actually was going to make it a white cop.
Wow.
Well, so that's on YouTube. Go and you can watch the alternate ending on YouTube.
Oh, they have one. Okay.
Yeah. It was like an extra. It's on YouTube. I see. This is the interesting thing. I agree that was like a really cool moment in the sense of like you subvert the audience, right?
Mm-hmm.
You show something and then you reveal something else, right? It's like
Yeah.
like really clever, right? I feel like this movie copped out a little bit at the end. Like, and
So you
James,
wanted the
come on, back me up.
sadness.
James, come back me up, please.
I think
James, James, back me up. Like I wanted like
the gut wrenching
I
ending.
wanted
Yeah.
that ending. Like it was a little too like final girl type of horror movie ending. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like at the very end, finally the last
I
girl like
like I like
figures out
both. I like both, but I think if it was a white cop at the end, it would have been more impactful, and it would have been that sinking feeling that I'm sure many Black Americans feel. Where when is this shit
I
ever
think,
gonna
yeah.
end? When is this shit ever gonna end?
Well, I think the sinking feeling, I think where the genius part is that you get the sinking feeling immediately when you see the lights. When you see the lights in the background, like I was shaking and I knew what was gonna, like you just thought you knew what was gonna happen, and that's the genius of the film is that moment, the whole crowd kind of is feeling that same thing.
You
And
get it.
so,
You get it there a little bit, but yeah.
yeah,
and she
and
smiles, right? She smiles too, like when
Yeah,
the
she's like, help,
yeah,
help.
yeah,
I'm a white woman. There's a black man on top of me.
Yeah.
Easy.
yeah,
Help.
yeah,
So she thinks.
and that
yeah,
part that part I think I mean I love that piece, right? Because like really throughout the whole movie this white girl is like basically using her sexuality as like she's weaponizing her sexuality, right? um and the fact that the movie went there like that, um that takes balls, man. Like that's not easy to like kind of go in that direction and not like piss off like X, Y, and Z groups or whatever, right?
Mm.
um
Which, like, again, just her switch at the end of the movie, like,
yeah.
I fully fucking believe, like, I fully believed it, and then she turns into just this complete psychopath where you're like, oh my god, your skin is crawling when she's
hmm
fucking eating the goddamn Fruit Loops, and then it's just like after she's pleading, she's like begging for her life. She's like, no, like like I still love you.
You were one of the
It's
good
just
ones.
no, it's just like it's just like a different person. Like, and again, it's just a testament to like how well Jordan Peele made you see things through the main character's eyes. It's like just how you see all of the characters around him and like how you see him kind of deal with that and cope with that. It's
Let me pose a question to the group. Like, do you feel like the movie needed a happy ending?
I actually, it depends because like I think it's good that it was a happy ending because it gives kind of hope towards at least like towards like the black audience that like, man, we're not just gonna die in every movie, even in one of our own movies that's about our own struggle, like this whole
Yeah.
thing. It's kind of like good that it wasn't fatalistic because you have a hero that survives this thing, like if it wasn't that, it just would have been like, man,
White
like
people suck. It would have been white people suck again. And it would have been like this is bullshit all over again.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I feel like that's a really good point.
I think
Although
by another black character. Like,
although the psychopath in me would like it to end like horribly like that. I feel like when you're going for what Jordan Peele was going for to get that black lens, you can't do that to your own guy, You can't do it to your own guy.
I mean, okay. James, I really thought you backed me up a little bit.
Sorry.
Here's the thing. Like, I don't I don't have like a major problem with the end, like because I think you're 100% right, Matt. Like that subversion at the end is pretty fucking genius, right? And it works. I just felt like, and if you watch the alternate ending, I actually don't even like the alternate ending. Honestly, the alternate ending has like he's in jail and his buddy like visits him in jail and is like, hey, I need more information to help investigate this case to help get you out of here, and he's just not interested in talking about it because he got him, right? Like he got them and he doesn't want to talk about it anymore. I don't like that ending.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a third ending or whatever, but some of my favorite horror movies, not all my favorite horror movies, some of my favorite horror movies, like I feel like the final girl thing is a little bit of a cliche. And like some of my favorite horror movies, it's like, okay, this movie subverted the narrative of like the story of like the oppression of black people in the United States, right? In that, right, the friend comes kind of at the end to save the day, right? And you think it's a cop, but it's a friend, right? So it subverted that narrative, right? But in the realm of horror movies, it played right into the final girl like narrative. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it's even with Allison Williams' character basically being dead and then coming back to life and then being dead and coming back to life, right? Like
The brother too. Yeah.
it kind of like to me for me, like just as like from the standpoint of like the where it fits in the sort of history of horror movies and stuff like that, it kind of played it safe. And maybe there was an opportunity to play it in a way that would really fuck your mind over, like, and maybe that was a missed opportunity. I mean, that's kind of picking, on the movie a little bit, but
I think one of the differences between the final girl movies and like this one is that in all those movies there's a group of people, one gets picked off one by one and the main character survives. And in this movie he's the only, lens. He's the only
Right.
one, or
right.
and so it's he's not the final girl because he's been the only girl. Like I don't
Yeah,
know,
I mean, I guess
like
if you want to call like Lakeith Stanfield and some of the other folks, but yeah, no, I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. It isn't exactly a final girl thing, right? Um,
but
yeah, I
I
mean,
get
but
it.
that's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's just picking a little bit, and like,
No, yeah.
the truth is like, I'm not dissatisfied with the ending, and like, I just don't think it. Maybe to be more of a mainstream success, right? It needed a happy ending. It's not too many movies that end in like a terrible way. Like catch on with a lot of people, right? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, only psychopaths like me and maybe James like recommend movies that like end in a shit way at the end. Like, hey, you got to watch this movie. You're gonna be bummed the fuck out for like days.
Yeah.
That's
You
like The
Yeah.
Mist, man. That's why
know.
what
Yeah.
makes The
Oh,
Mist
yeah.
so
It's
good.
so
Oh,
good. Yeah.
yeah, no,
Because it's so
100%.
fucked up. Like
And you
it's
guys
kind of
need to
not
review
that
that.
great during, but the ending like is so gut wrenching.
You guys need to review that. I think that's like a modern last 20 years like horror classic for
Yeah.
sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I
Like
agree 100%.
what
It
makes that
could.
movie so like because it's like a B or C movie until the ending. And that's what
Yeah,
makes it so good. But
yeah.
I think like if you listen to Jordan Peele though, and this like statement from him will piss off people a lot and some not. It's like when they ask him, "Hey, are you ever going to make movies with like white people as the main character?" And he says, "No, because I've seen that." Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's like a and I when you come from his perspective, right? This is his first movie, and he's making it from like for black people and for everybody but for black people. And so I
Yeah.
think at the end when he decides to have him live, it's because of that purpose. And I don't even think it's for like mainstream to appease everybody. He's thinking about it for that specific audience.
Yeah. He's like, we're gonna
And
win this one.
Well, it's
Gotta
kind
make
of
it.
like
yeah, yeah, yeah,
maybe a little bit like Shaft or something, like, or some of those movies
yeah.
from the 70s, right? Where it was like really the only black people you saw on the screen were like servants or villains or whatever, right? And so this is like just a badass motherfucker. Mother, shut your mouth, sorry. That, is just cool. And like, I mean, no, I see that. And also, not to spoil us, but
I was waiting for you
not
to
to
bring up
spoil
us.
us, but like, that one has
I
I wouldn't say a
actually haven't
happy
seen
ending.
that, so
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
not okay. All right, no, I'm not gonna
We're
say
not
anything
going
about it.
there.
well, gotta watch
Go
us.
watch it. Go watch it.
Yeah, yeah. I want to watch it for sure.
Yeah.
I would say more along the lines of horror than Get Out. That's all I'll say about it, in my opinion. But yeah, so that pretty much takes us to kind of our rounding thoughts.
Any
Any other things
last
we want to
thoughts
talk
you want to get in
about?
before we get to reviews?
Yeah, I'm just going through my notes here. The family's name is Armitage, which means hermit. And there's that
Michelle.
part where Logan says, "I haven't had much desire to leave the house in a while." Lakeith Stanfield's character, remember?
Oh
I
yeah.
thought that was kind of cool. The the female sort of servant character when Chris says, "I don't want to be a snitch" or something, and she's like
Mm,
completely confused at what the word snitch means. I thought that was a
Yeah,
nice
yeah,
little touch.
yeah.
And then
Oh,
afterwards he's
Oh,
like, this bitch is crazy. This bitch is crazy.
yeah. Like when you go back and you watch it a second time, you see how the actors who are playing those who are, the elderly white people inside of a black body, you can
Yeah.
see how that was the cue. Just act that. And we
mhm.
didn't realize it at first, but it comes out so creepy. But that's what they were told to act like, like they weren't even told to be creepy in a sense, but just be that. Maybe the
Be a creepy old white
grandma,
person.
yeah. Maybe the grandma, the maid, because she had those moments where she's like snapping, right, and that's creepy. But like to be that character, you can just say, "Oh yeah, just be this old white person," and like it was just, yeah.
Um, and then let me see here. What else? Oh, remember how, so the grandfather that you don't see in the movie, but the dad's father, um, how he lost to Jesse Owens in the Olympics.
Mhm.
Um, and he says he almost got over it, right? Almost.
Yeah.
That's like a big tip. I mean, to me, like again, this is
Mm.
just like a little bit a tip as to what the hell's going on. Oh, okay, that basement. Okay, so I got two things on that basement. One is the animal skulls all over the place, like, and like back in the day, right? Like in the sort of like the scientific racism, right? Phrenology was like an important part of that, right? So like phrenology is basically like a measurement of. Oh, did my video freeze?
Yeah.
Your audio is good.
Okay, well, whatever. Um, I'll just finish this. But anyway, so phrenology, right? Like it's the sort of measurement of like the dimensions of the skull, like to determine like
Mm,
intelligence and all this other BS, right? And um,
priority.
I,
Just to
I
try
I
to.
felt like that was interesting. That was an interesting thing. The second thing is when I was running my software consulting business, I had to go meet a client in Florida, right? And this was in 2017, and this was for a pretty big project. So I flew down. I met these guys. It was these twin brothers that were running a gym. Okay, and we were going to build this software for their gym, basically. So they invite me into their office. Okay, and I walk into their office, and it was cigars, portraits of Donald Trump, Ronald Reagan, um, and this is like really dark furniture, like guns, like rifles, like mounted and stuff like that. And I was immediately like on edge. I mean, I gotta say, and like that basement reminded me so much of that room, you know.
Yeah. Just
And I can speak
vibe
about those guys because they suck, but
of.
they suck. But yeah, anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I've got. So let's get into the reviews.
Yeah.
See if
Let's
I can fix my camera.
jump into it. Um, who wants to go for it? James, do you wanna lead the way on this one?
Oh man.
Fill the spot
Yeah,
here.
yeah, I guess I could.
Let me ask you a question though first, right? So
Yes.
you came into this saying that you were sort of always known as a hater of this movie,
Y-
sort of.
Yeah.
He
Has
was.
any of our talkings changed that or not?
It's changed it a lot. It's changed it a
Okay.
lot.
Okay.
A lot more than I thought it would.
Wow. All right.
Yeah. Yeah. Um yeah, so when I first saw this, I don't know, like the hype for this movie was just unreal. I saw it in theaters, left the theater thinking, well, that was kind of stupid. Honestly, to be honest, I don't know. I was like, I was like, this is what everyone's talking about. Um, the second watch through, enjoyed it a lot more. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention to the little details and the context, and maybe back then I wasn't as woke. No, I don't know what's, but stay woke.
We didn't talk
Stay
about
woke.
that. We didn't talk
Yeah.
about that.
um, maybe I wasn't so involved in like the Black Lives Matter stuff, and now 4 years later, definitely know a lot more about it. So it kind of changes your perspective a little bit. I think that's probably what helped my score more, And then hearing you guys talk about it, yeah, this is a really fun movie. It's really clever in many ways, even though there were times where I felt like, this is kind of cheesy at like, and especially like I don't know, like the running scene is cheesy. Like a lot of like the scary parts, like the creepy parts, I'm just like, it's hard for me to take this seriously. And then I'm already laughing at it, and then they give me more comedic relief. So I'm like, it's hard for me to like stay um very serious with it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But um what else do I want to say about it? What else? Yeah, just all the little details is what makes this movie great, I think. Um from the photographer lens, uh like I said, the cotton picking stuff, like I was like, that's clever as hell. Um what am I gonna give this? For me, I think I'm sitting around an 8.5 for me, which is a lot higher than I thought I was gonna give
That's
it.
a lot. Yeah, that's a lot higher
I
than I
Pretty
thought.
high.
I
That's
was
pretty good.
coming I was coming in feelings with even second viewing, but I think the conversation we had, the stuff that Matt brought up was
Right.
really interesting. I think we had a lot of good talks here tonight. But yeah,
Yeah.
8.5.
Okay, 8.5 out of James. Should we go clockwise? Alonso, you ready? Ready to take it over for your
Yeah, I
review?
think so. Yeah. Yeah. So we said a lot. Um, I think for me, right, I've got a little bit of that hater energy that James does, more so maybe even. And I'm definitely a little bit of a gatekeeper, like when it comes to like stuff like horror, because like, okay, so all right, sorry, I'm gonna try and not be so long-winded here, but like when I was a kid, okay, when I was a kid, growing up in West Virginia, I didn't, it was like we had a drugstore, we had a video store. The drugstore had comics, and the video store had videos. Okay, and I'm dating myself. It was VHS. Anyway, so so I read comics, and at the time it was like the X-Men or whatever, right? That was like the big thing, right? And then the video store, right? So the video store had like the main room, and again, I hope you guys remember what video store was.
And then the
The
porn room.
There was the porn room, right? No, seriously, there was the main
Yeah.
room, then there was the porn room, but this video store had a horror room, like a
Ah.
whole room with like nothing but horror tapes. Okay. And so, yeah, so me and my buddies would go to the horror tapes, and like we would pick the movie based off the cover, right? Like just exclusively like, oh man, this looks like some fucked up shit. Let's watch this shit, right? So what's interesting to me is like now I'm almost 40, and like the comic book movies are the all the rage, and like this movie was the first horror movie that a lot of people had seen. It was like a horror movie that like it got a lot of mainstream attention and hype because of stuff that Matt was talking about, right? Like telling the story, like this is like a story of the Black experience, right? In this sort of genre like type movie, like a horror movie, right? And so I, you know, I'm naturally skeptical and suspicious, right? When normal people say this movie is so great,
No.
right? Well, I mean, what I'm saying. Like not people that would generally watch like a horror movie,
Yeah.
But the truth is, this movie is fun. It's fun, and it's innovative. It's really innovative. It tells a story that isn't told in the genre, and
$4.5 million budget, by the way. Forgot to mention
you
that.
got to give it. Also, that's another thing, man. I love movies that cost nothing, that are made so well and like catch on. I love that stuff. You know, like to me, that's like such a cool thing. But like, it's fun. Like, I mean, I say it's fun, right? It's like, how can a movie like that be fun?
Issues be. Yeah.
But that's like that's like I think that's what makes it great, right? That's part of what makes it great. It's like so fun. So anyway, all that to say, all the things I've said, the issues I had with it really are, I don't know about the ending. I don't know about the beginning. I don't know about the ending. I don't know about the beginning. Could the pacing have been? Could it get to the point a little quicker? Maybe. That was another thing I thought.
The
Like, it
runtime's
took
only an hour and 40, which I thought was really
true,
good.
but like, really, like the moment when the moment of the revelation is like basically what, about 20 minutes before the end of the movie, right? 25 maybe. But those are like minor things. So like for me, I'm gonna give it a solid 8 of 10. That's
8.
Okay.
8 of 10. 8.0 of 10.
All right. Cool. So 8 coming out of Alonso.
Thanks.
It over.
Thanks, Matt Rodriguez.
I'll go and take it over. So
you're giving me the Bob Ross.
This this movie was really, really fun to watch. I think it being Jordan Peele, I mean, all of us, we know Key and Peele really well, and to just be like, what? Like, he made a movie and it's a horror movie? Like, what the fuck? Completely out of left field. So just that wow factor and the fact that it was actually pretty fucking good was just insane. I think the way that Jordan Peele wrote this movie to completely show the perspective through the main character's eyes, and just to see Chris react to everyone like around him, who, again, we talked about this, the white moderates, right? The people who don't think they're racist. I couldn't be racist. I voted for Obama twice, right? Like, just that level, and to see that, is just like, oh shit, like it kind of flips the lens, and you're just like, do I do that type of shit? Like, am I that type of person? And that's huge. I mean, we've talked about that type of just that type of feeling that you get when we've went through all of the movies that we've talked about in our Black History Month. Like, all of them have brought this level of just like, man, just learning more about this, just like experiencing it, just really putting yourself in there. Like, you really just start to gain a perspective. And this movie did it really well. I think maybe the best out of the movies that we've seen. And so just for that alone, I think was amazing. Things that maybe I wasn't crazy about is, I think, this movie is called a horror, but there's not a whole lot of it that feels horror, that feels like the traditional, like, like, am I actually really scared? Or is this, it kind of goes a little bit sci-fi, and it's weird. And there's nothing wrong with it being weird. But one question that I had all three times that I watched it, I was just like, why do these old white people want to be in these like half brain dead like beings? Like, if you look at like the groundskeeper, like, it doesn't look like he knows what's going on. You look at the maid, she's kind of lost the whole time. It's just like, is that a life to live? Like, why? And they're just working. They're just, I don't know. It was just weird to me. I was like, why? We didn't get too much into that, but yeah. So, but needless to say, I mean, there's so many small things to like really focus in on, all of the little subtle nods that it does to other things. Like, there was one point where at when they have a shot at the TSA or at the airport, and it's flight 237 now boarding, and it's just like 237, the room in The Shining. There's just a lot of
okay. Where is it? Wait, hold on.
Yeah. Just a lot of cool homages that they do, and that's just a testament to how much of a horror fan Jordan Peele is. So For me, this movie is solid. It's great. Third time watching it, had a great time the whole time. It's fun. So this is a solid 9 out of 10 for me. So yeah.
All right.
Let's take it over to Matt.
All right. Well, you guys have said a lot, and I agree with a lot of what you.
I know it sucks to go last. Sorry.
Got nothing to say.
What's really cool about this movie is that it accomplishes a lot for a first timer, and it got, and I think the success that it has is well earned. I don't think the success is due to pandering or anything like that. I think it's well earned. There are a lot of instances that you could keep on watching this movie and find out more things, right? So like even as all of you guys were talking, I want to be like, oh, well, I thought this about that and that and that, I'm like, like I don't want to go do that now because we're like ending this, but
you can if you want. You could bring up a
no,
little
go
bit.
for it, man.
Yeah,
Go for it.
No, I mean, I can't even remember like what I was thinking. But, I think I actually would give it a 9.5. I've never done film fumblers, and so I've never had to rate anything, but I would say this is a completely unique movie that accomplishes what it sets out to do. You go in and you have this horror expectation, and with the music too, like if you listen to like what they do with the music, it really goes back to like Hitchcock, to like all these other things, and it really makes you feel like this tension, like something's going to happen all the time. And then it ends up, I think, being a thriller.
Yeah.
So like, but that's the subversion in a sense. But I think I'd give it a 9.5 just because it culturally does what it sets out to do. It exposes a lot of new thoughts to a lot of new people. It's not a horror that is made for horror just for shock factor. It's actually not what it's about at all. And it's not even, even though it's made for, I think it's made for a specific audience, everybody gets something out of it. And that is very hard to do. So.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Cool. So that brings us to a collective 8.75. Just want to give a special thanks to Alonso and Matt for being our guests this week. Jay and Taryn couldn't make it, so we just grabbed YouTube. No, I'm just kidding. No, it was really great to have you guys on. Had a whole lot of fun with this one. I think it was a great episode. Yeah. Next week, we are going to be reviewing The Sound of Metal. So that is going to be, what is that? That's first week of March. That's March 6th. So be sure you're tuned in for that. Twitch.tv/filmfumblers. Find all of our socials on filmfumblers.com. Yeah, that pretty much does it. Is there anything else we need to touch bases with? Find Alonso at on his podcast at Your Mission Pod.
Oh yeah. YourMissionPod.com. Go check that out.
Do you want to plug something, Matt?
Plug Matt.
No.
No plugs.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Have a great rest of your night. See ya.
Cheers.